The city lights shimmered against the midnight sky as she stepped into his penthouse, a storm of nerves hidden beneath her poised exterior. He had offered her 1 month, just 30 days to occupy his world, to fill the emptiness he refused to name aloud. She could feel the weight of his stare, the unspoken demands veiled in charm, and the quiet thrum of desire that neither dared to voice. Every step she took on the polished marble, every flicker of candlelight across her skin, drew him closer. Yet she remained untouchable. She wondered, could a man so powerful, so confident, truly want her beyond the arrangement? And in that suspended moment of luxury and tension, a question lingered. Could she walk away unscathed when 30 days ended? Or would he, against all pride, beg her to stay? She accepted his offer with a pragmatic smile, but the penthouse's silent opulence made her pulse race in ways money couldn't calm. Every glance he threw her felt loaded with unspoken questions, a dangerous curiosity that tugged at her defenses. She tried to convince herself this was just a transaction, a temporary arrangement. But as he poured wine and their fingers brushed, the heat of their proximity lingered long after the touch. Her mind raced. Could a month of pretending lead to anything real, or was she just tempting a storm she couldn't escape? The answer hovered, teasing, thrilling, terrifying in its inevitability. The first night deepened the unspoken connection, the city outside glittering while their conversation danced around forbidden curiosity. He asked about her dreams. She deflected with humor and lightness, but every laugh brought them closer. Every story revealed a vulnerability neither expected. Simone felt a strange pull, an invisible tether to a man who had offered her only money, and now seemed to demand her attention, her mind, her heartbeat. The question lingered. Could desire overwrite the rules they had set? Morning arrived with sunlight cutting through the floor-to-ceiling windows, highlighting the tension that had thickened overnight. She sipped coffee, contemplative, aware of his gaze tracing her every movement. Malcolm's controlled demeanor hinted at an internal battle, a man used to control facing a heart that refused to bend. Every subtle glance, every unspoken gesture became a dangerous dance, teasing a passion they both tried to deny. Could 30 days change everything they thought they knew? By evening, the penthouse felt less like a home, and more like a crucible of emotion. Every conversation layered with desire and hesitation. Simone laughed at something he said, the sound melodic, catching him off guard. He realized that he wasn't merely entertained by her presence. He was affected in ways that money could never dictate. And for the first time, he imagined a world where he didn't get to keep her, a world where she walked away. Panic, desire, and fear collided in a dangerous cocktail. The question remained, what would he do if she left before he could claim her heart for himself? The air felt heavier now, charged with an intimacy that neither could ignore. They spoke less of pleasantries and more of truths, disguised as jokes, each revelation threading them closer together. Simone noticed cracks in his composed demeanor, a fleeting hesitation, a softness in his gaze that made her question the boundaries she had set. For the first time, she wondered if the arrangement was never meant to remain temporary, if desire could outweigh logic and pride. The unspoken tension thickened. Could they resist what was already inevitable? Simone's curiosity about him grew faster than her caution. He shared stories, carefully measured, revealing glimpses of a past that explained the armor he wore so effortlessly. With each laugh, each hesitant confession, the distance between them shrank, leaving only a charged vulnerability. She realized that the arrangement had shifted. The lines they drew at the start no longer held firm. A sudden disagreement over a trivial matter revealed more than annoyance. It uncovered vulnerability, frustration, and a hint of fear neither expected. Simone's voice trembled with passion as she defended herself, and Malcolm's usual calm faltered. In that fleeting clash, desire and frustration entwined, making it impossible to distinguish anger from longing. Could conflict bring them closer, or would it pull them apart before the month ended? Nightfall brought a fragile calm. They sat in silence, yet every glance and every subtle movement spoke volumes. Simone wondered if this connection, so tender and unpredictable, could survive the rules they had imposed. He watched her closely, knowing that each passing day made the idea of losing her unbearable. Their emotions were no longer contained. Desire, curiosity, and the fear of letting go filled the room like an unspoken storm. Simone leaned against the balcony railing, city lights sparkling below, heart racing as he approached. Words failed them, replaced by charged glances and fleeting touches. She realized the month-long arrangement had already changed them both, in ways neither anticipated. Desire had turned to attachment, curiosity into need. And in that quiet, electric moment, the unspoken question hovered. Could she leave when it ended, or had she already become his, and he hers? A storm raged outside, echoing the turmoil within the penthouse. Simone discovered a letter that hinted at a past he hadn't shared, a piece of himself he had locked away. Her curiosity collided with a growing mistrust. Why keep her in the dark when the connection between them felt so real? He noticed the change in her eyes, the subtle hesitation in her tone, and for the first time, panic touched him. Could the walls he had carefully built now crumble under the weight of desire and secrets? The tension between them ignited like sparks across dry kindling. Words meant to clarify only deepened the misunderstandings, and every look became charged with unspoken accusations and fragile desire. Simone felt hurt, unsure if the man she was beginning to trust could truly be honest. Malcolm, desperate not to lose her, fought his pride and the fear that the past would define their future. The question hung between them: could love survive the shadows of secrets? A sudden confession brought silence heavier than words. Simone's past, once carefully guarded, spilled into the room in trembling tones. He listened, unflinching, realizing that her strength was born from hardship, pain, and beauty intertwined in a delicate tapestry, and Malcolm felt something shift inside him. Love no longer felt optional. Every fiber of him ached to protect her, to claim not the month she offered, but the heart she hesitated to give. The next morning brought quiet confrontation. Words were careful, deliberate, each syllable loaded with emotion. Simone's defenses softened, but hesitation lingered. Could she allow herself to want more than the contract promised? Malcolm's restraint faltered as he realized that every day she stayed was one day closer to losing her entirely. Desire and fear collided in a silent storm, both knowing that the truth had now entwined their fates. By nightfall, the storm outside had subsided, leaving an eerie calm in its wake. They sat in silence, closer than ever, yet separated by the fragile remnants of trust. Simone sensed the depth of his need, the vulnerability hidden beneath his controlled exterior. Malcolm realized he couldn't imagine the coming days without her presence, her laughter, her fire. Desire had evolved into something more profound, more dangerous, and the question that haunted both remained: could love survive the lingering shadows of the past? The tension in the apartment was palpable, like electricity waiting to ignite. Words failed them, and every glance carried weight. Apologies, longing, unspoken truths. Simone could feel his presence behind her as she moved across the room, her heart pounding in a rhythm that mirrored the storm in her chest. For the first time, the contract felt irrelevant. Desire had overtaken reason, and yet a fragile fear lingered. Could trust survive if passion ruled the night? A sudden kiss broke the fragile calm. Time slowed, hearts raced, and the world outside disappeared. Simone's defenses melted as she felt the fire in his touch, the urgency he could no longer conceal. The room became a private universe, where only desire and vulnerability existed, leaving both questioning boundaries, rules, and the contract that had brought them together. Could a month ever contain what had just begun? The following argument was sharp, fueled by fear and desire. Simone questioned the nature of their connection, whether it was real or merely a game, While Malcolm fought to explain that her presence had become more than comfort, it was a necessity. Tension gave way to raw honesty. Hearts laid bare for the first time, as they realized that the month-long agreement had already transformed into something neither could control. Night fell, and the city lights shimmered against the darkened windows. They sat together in silence, tension replaced with fragile intimacy. Simone's hand brushed against his, a spark igniting between them, reminding both that the connection they had fought to ignore could no longer be denied. Every heartbeat echoed the unspoken truth. They were no longer just companions, they were entwined in body, mind, and heart. By the stroke of midnight, words became unnecessary. Malcolm's quiet confession shattered the last of her hesitation. He could not imagine life without her. Simone, trembling with emotion, realized she had been holding herself back from the very love she had longed for. In the silent apartment, desire, fear, and hope collided, leaving them teetering on the edge of surrender. The question lingered, unsaid but undeniable. Could they survive the consequences of giving in to each other completely? The next morning felt heavy with unspoken fears. Simone noticed his phone buzzing constantly, his guarded expressions returning like an old mask. A slip of a message revealed fragments of a secret she hadn't expected. Trust wavered, and for the first time she questioned whether their connection was ever real. Malcolm's attempts to explain felt insufficient, and the distance between them suddenly seemed insurmountable. The question lingered. Could desire survive betrayal, or was it doomed before it could flourish? Her confrontation came sharply, words spilling faster than she could control. She demanded honesty, clarity, and yet every revelation seemed to dig a deeper chasm between. Malcolm's face showed pain he could no longer hide. Pride wrestled with desperation. In that storm of emotion, both realized the fragility of their arrangement had reached its breaking point, and the very thing that had drawn them together now threatened to tear them apart. The tension escalated as he revealed the truth. His actions had been misunderstood, his intentions misread. Yet words alone could not undo the storm he had inadvertently triggered. Simone's heart wavered between love and caution, her mind torn between desire and self-preservation. The air felt thick with the consequences of passion, and neither could ignore the growing fear of losing what they had built. By evening, both were exhausted with emotion. Silence filled the room, broken only by the distant hum of the city. Simone realized that her fear of losing herself had collided with the fear of losing him, and Malcolm recognized that his pride had nearly cost him the only person he truly needed. The tension between desire, regret, and longing created an invisible wall neither dared to cross. Yet, a final confrontation before the month's end brought raw emotion to the surface. Simone's voice trembled as she demanded truth, and Malcolm, on the verge of breaking, realized the depth of his love left him no choice. Vulnerability replaced pride, and in a moment charged with fear, longing, and hope, he made a silent promise. No matter the past, no matter the misunderstanding, he would fight for her. The question remained heavy and urgent. Could she believe him in time? The morning was quiet, almost fragile, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Simone had retreated to the balcony, her mind replaying every word, every gesture. Malcolm approached cautiously, aware that one misstep could push her away forever. Words were unnecessary at first. He simply stood behind her, close enough for warmth, distant enough to respect the space she needed. Every heartbeat reminded them both of what was at stake. The month was ending, and so was their chance to redefine what they could be together. A single conversation broke the fragile tension. Malcolm spoke with honesty and vulnerability, admitting his fear of losing her, his regret for letting pride guide him. Simone listened, her defenses softening as the truth sank in. She realized that love had no room for contracts, rules, or hesitation. It demanded risk, trust, and surrender. For the first time, the possibility of a shared future felt real. Their first touch since the confrontation was electric and tentative. Fingers intertwined, hesitant at first, then tighter, as if making up for lost time. Every subtle movement spoke volumes. Desire, fear, hope, and the undeniable pull of love. Simone realized the truth she had fought for so long. She belonged here, in this moment, with him. And Malcolm, feeling her hand in his, knew he could no longer imagine life without her presence defining his days. Evening fell, and with it, a quiet intimacy settled over the penthouse. Laughter returned, soft and cautious at first, then more natural. They shared memories, small confessions and light touches, each moment a reminder that love could survive fear and misunderstanding. The month-long contract had ended, but what remained was stronger, deeper, and more urgent than either expected. They realized that surrendering to love required trust, and both were finally ready. By midnight, the penthouse was quiet, except for their shared breaths. Simone rested her head against Malcolm's chest, feeling the steady rhythm of a heart that had once seemed unreachable. Malcolm, holding her close, whispered promises he could no longer keep to himself. Promises of care, protection, and unwavering presence. The bond forged in a month of fire and misunderstanding had transformed into a love neither could deny. The question that had haunted them both was answered. Together, they would face whatever came next. The final day of their month together began with a heavy silence. The penthouse felt emptier than ever, despite the luxury surrounding them. Simone packed a small bag, each movement deliberate, guarded, and heartbreaking to watch. Malcolm realized that all the carefully hidden walls he had built to protect himself now threatened to lose the woman he loved. Time had revealed what money and arrangements could not. He needed her entirely, and for the first time he understood that love wasn't something to control. It was something to surrender to. He tried to speak, words faltering under the weight of his emotions. Simone's eyes held a quiet strength, the same independence that had captivated him from the start. Every rational thought he had clung to was gone, replaced by raw fear and undeniable longing. He realized that letting her leave was no longer an option. He needed to fight for her, heart and soul, without pretense or pride. Words became unnecessary when he dropped to his knees before her. The power, the pride, the wealth, all of it felt meaningless in that instant. All that mattered was the woman who had captured his heart, whose presence had transformed his world. Simone's breath caught, her own heart pounding as she realized the depth of his vulnerability. He was no longer the untouchable man who had paid for her company. He was simply a man, begging for the love he had discovered too late to ignore. Silence enveloped them, broken only by the unspoken understanding that this was the moment everything could change. Simone's heart wavered between leaving and surrendering. She saw the man he truly was. Not the contract, not the wealth, not the control, but a man stripped of pretense, utterly vulnerable, utterly devoted. The weight of their month together, the laughter, the tension, the passion, all converged in that single heartbeat of decision. Finally, Simone stepped forward, her hand brushing against his cheek, and the unspoken answer hung in the air. Malcolm's heart surged as relief, joy, and love overwhelmed him. The contract was irrelevant now. All that mattered was them. Two hearts entwined, two souls surrendered. Desire, fear, and longing melted into a perfect, quiet moment of triumph and devotion. For the first time, neither questioned the future. They only felt it together.